Hey class, so today's topic is algebra and geometry. And yes, you can do algebra with geometry. I know that sounds fun to you. Your learning target is I can use properties of angles to solve for x. So we're going to do little equations here within the geometry problems. But the first thing we're going to do is just review what the angle relationships are in these four pictures here. So in this first one, we'll call it number 1. We'll call this angle A and this angle B. And the only thing you know about this picture is that angle A plus angle B equals 90 degrees. And that's how you'll set up your algebra problem, and you'll see that in future videos. In number 2 here, we'll call this angle A and this angle B. And the only thing we know about this picture is that angle A plus angle B equals 180 degrees. And it gets a little bit more complicated as we move to the bottom here. And take a look at this number 3 one here. These are this is the picture we usually use for vertical angles. And we'll say A, we'll say B, C, and D. We'll just go around in a loop here. Now if I put angle A and B together, that's going to form 180 degrees. So that's very similar to number 2. If you just pretend like this line wasn't there, then it's really the same thing. Now, that happens a lot. It actually happens with A and D, it happens with B and C, and it happens with D and C. So I'm not going to list all 4, but that gives you an idea of if the two angles are next to each other, they add up to 180. If they are across from each other, so if you have, for instance, A and C, you wouldn't add them together. You would instead say exactly what we said. A is equal to C. And you could also say D is equal to B. So those are the two setups for this picture that are possible. You'd have to see which angles they give you first before you decide. And the last one here, number 4, there's a lot of angles here. We'll call A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And there are still only 2 possibilities with this picture. I'm going to extend the page a little here. Just like before, if we have 2 angles next to each other, sometimes it's called adjacent to each other. Adjacent. Then they add up to 180. So angle A plus angle B still equals 180 degrees. So there's lots of those too. There's A and C, B and D, E and F, H and G, F and G, E and H. There's tons of them. I'm not going to name them all. There's more than that. What I'm going to say is something that some of my past classes have used to remember this, which is if you take a look at B, it's a big angle. It's obtuse. So it's more than 90 degrees. So we call that the big angle. And then angle A is acute. It's the little angle. We actually call that the baby. So we have a big plus baby, and I didn't write it in the right order, but anytime you have a big angle and a small angle or a baby angle, we say big plus baby makes 180. It's a cool little trick to help you remember that, and that works for any of them. It works for number 3, that works for number 2. It does not work for number 1 though, because they're both acute, so it'd be baby, and there's no trick for that. So that's one setup. Big plus baby equals 180. The other one is basically if you have 2 big angles, they equal each other. And if you have 2 small angles or baby angles, they also equal each other. So we would say something like angle B equals angle C. But you could also say angle B, which is this one up here, which is a big one, is equal to any of the other big ones, including F or H. So you would say something like angle B is congruent or equal to angle H.